I'm Harris Faulkner. This is the Fox Report. It's the bottom of the hour, and here is what's happening. Turkey is evacuating villages close to the Syrian border as the fight against what is now being called an army of terrorists, of course armed with much of our equipment that we left behind in Iraq, is now trying to capture the Syrian city Kobani. And Kurdish forces are trying to fight them off, but word they are desperate for help. We know our military has hit targets inside Syria from the air. No idea if that's helping the Kurdish fighters. The Pentagon's not saying at this point. Either way, ISIS seems to be undeterred, leading in Washington some to doubt whether airstrikes will be enough. Peter Doocy, more from Washington. Peter?
Harris, ISIS is certainly overmatched from above, but will airstrikes be enough to destroy this militant group? So far this weekend, American aircraft have destroyed ISIS tanks, vehicles, mortar positions, and Humvees, with 3 strikes in Syria, bringing the total there to 92 since September 23rd, and 6 more strikes in Iraq, bringing the total in that country to 258 since August 8th. But Republican Senator Lindsey Graham told CNN today he does not think ISIS will really start hurting until ground troops are deployed, as another Republican, Senator Kelly Ayotte, is warning the White House not to abandon this campaign until the job is done.
He has made clear this is going to take a sustained effort, and he has to be prepared to have the resolve to engage in that sustained effort to destroy ISIS. Otherwise, we're going to be in a situation where we have a safe haven again, where attacks can be launched against us.
But Democrats see things differently, with Senator Jack Reed saying he doesn't believe the intel community or the president is to blame for the rapid rise of ISIS. Instead, Reed points to domestic politics inside Iraq.
The issue, I think, that caught the intelligence community by surprise was the lack of capacity of the Iraqi military forces, and particularly the political disenfranchisement of the Sunni community by Maliki.
This afternoon, President Obama spoke broadly about American troops, and he said he believes they should only be sent into harm's way when it's absolutely necessary. Harris?
Peter, thank you. Dysfunction in Washington appears to be manifesting itself in voter sentiment. Imagine that. Ahead of crucial midterm elections, more Americans are losing confidence in President Obama and Congress. The Fox News political insiders are here, and you can join in our conversation on Facebook or on Twitter. They're going to put all that information on the bottom of the screen. There it goes. And at the desk with me tonight, John LeBoutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell in the middle, a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter and Fox News contributor. And Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Bill Clinton and Fox News contributor as well. So, as Peter Doocy was doing his report, Pat, you said, well, that's exactly why people are losing confidence in Congress and in the White House.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because everything is falling apart, basically. Our foreign policy, we're supposed to be stopping ISIS. We don't have enough airstrikes. The American people are already deciding we may need to have ground troops and support it. Maybe they'll bring the administration along. We have chaos going on in the rest of the world. We have the Ebola. We have a Secret Service that can't protect the president. We have a Veterans Administration that abuses veterans. And it's just one thing. We have an IRS that targets people. And by the way, gives billions of dollars to people who file fraudulent claims and gives up billions of dollars of people they've closed investigations.
All right. I want to push back just a little bit. Maybe not push back, but just drill down on what you just said. So are you saying that the president and Congress are responsible for all of that? I mean, you listed Ebola as part of it. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Every one of the things that Pat listed, the VA, the IRS, Ebola coming into this country, the Secret Service, as he said, not being able to protect the president. First of all, these are things you never would have thought a few years ago were possible in America. If I had said on this show, Doug, 3 or 4 years ago, oh, Ebola is going to be breaking out in various cities in the country, and some guy's going to be walking into the East Room of the White House
John wouldn't have believed it for a second.
No, I mean, it's like the salami getting sliced little bit by little bit, and all of a sudden you wake up, it's half gone.
We couldn't even read that scenario. It was too incredible.
All right. So, but all of this, and I've heard you all three say this, this is important, the timing of it, because now we're less than 30 days away from the midterm elections. Let's pop up something I want you to see. This is a Gallup poll. Registered voters using the midterm election as a vote to send a message to the president. How will this play, Doug? Well, and who does this hurt the most?
It certainly hurts the president. We're at record levels of blame. record levels.
Do you think he cares, though? He's got 2 more years.
I think he cares, Harris, about the politics. You heard Jack Reed, a veteran Democratic senator, say it's all the Iraqis' fault. You heard the president say that it's the intelligence community's fault.
Yes.
What we're not getting is any sense of unity of the American people around a common purpose to stop perpetrators of evil, hatred, and mass murder, which is ISIS.
And we know divided we fall, Pat.
Right, and look at this. I mean, we have a woman whose head is cut off by someone who became intoxicated with a radical
in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma. Yeah. And people are wondering, wait a minute.
Beheading in Oklahoma.
Another workplace violence episode. We have Panetta, the former Secretary of Defense, a Democrat, well respected, saying, I told the president we couldn't do this. We should have kept troops in Iraq. Everyone knows we should have done this. And you know what?
And the former Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates, saying basically the same thing.
So Harris, here's the way, listening to all this, you have to see that the public believes, as we do, that America is in decline.
Desperate decline.
America's in decline, and what is lacking with a month to go before the election is one candidate or even one party or one campaign who says, we are here to restore America. We are not going to let this country go down the drain. Here's what we're going to do positively. Why the Republicans don't do this, I don't know. Here's 3 things we're going to do if you elect us to get the country back on track. I don't hear a word about it.
Well, what you're saying is you haven't heard one,
Not
let
one.
alone 3. Okay, right. I want to get this in from Twitter. David Wolverton writes to the insiders and Harris, this close to the election, neither side wants to be blamed for any mistakes.
That's exactly right. What John said is very important. What Pat said, I couldn't underscore enough. But neither side is willing to talk positively about our values, what makes us great, and what we need to do as a nation to move forward. Everyone's playing politics, no one's leading, and the American people, Harris, are just plain angry.
Look, it's important to understand. Just look at this. We have troops in the field, people flying, risking their lives. They will not even come back from this election campaign of negativity to vote on authorization. We're going to put that off to the lame duck or beyond. The same thing with the president on amnesty, where he is, instead of getting an immigration program, he's going to amnesty 5 or 6 or 7 million.
Could be as many as 11.
11 million. You know what? This is nothing but contempt for the voters. All these parties care about is a desperation to get power, and that's why the American people seem so disinterested in this election.
All right, 2 more things to show you. Fox News poll shows, and in case Democrats or Republicans think that this is a party thing, they're wearing this together. Look at the dissatisfaction here. Disapproval. And again, voters were asked, likely voters were asked, do you approve or disapprove of the job of Congress? Now, overall, it's about 13% approval, which is really sad. But for those people, you know, you always say politics is local, so you might think those numbers of approval might be higher because people would be thinking of their own politicians.
And what we're seeing is 60% across the board are saying they disapprove of both parties. But there's an interesting electoral point here, Harris, underscoring what John and Pat have said. The Republicans have higher dissatisfaction and lower satisfaction than the Democrats, and the Democrats are discredited. So the Republicans, if they win, it's no mandate. It is just a rejection of Obama and the Democrats.
On Doug's point on that is that's why I think the Republicans probably will win the Senate, because everybody's angry. Republicans are more angry, and their passion differential favors them. More of them will come out to vote in this off-year election, I think,
barely,
right. And they'll barely win the Senate.
Pat, with you, I want to talk to you about really something that you and I have talked about before, and that's that government really has a key role to protect us. I mean, everything else is nice, but the key job is to keep us safe.
Uno.
So the Associated Press did a poll, and we won't pop anything else up on the screen anymore, but just to let you know, it shows that 37%, more than a third of Americans polled, say that they fear more than ever that we are going to get hit. And I'm looking on Twitter. Ed Hines writes on my Twitter page, regarding ISIS, America won't mobilize until ISIS actually attacks this country.
Yeah. I think the American people are probably more anxious than I can remember in a long time, whether it's ISIS, Ebola, just a sense that things aren't working. We have a president who has what's the word? He has utter confidence in whatever.
I have the utmost confidence in each of these institutions.
And everything is failing, and no one, as Doug so eloquently stated, has a vision. No one's saying we should rally the country. The president clearly is trying to get through the election, in my opinion.
Doing anything he can, Pat.
So he can, at that point, I guarantee you, I'll bet you money right now, you're going to see this ISIS campaign back off. Because if you were serious, you would have done, everyone knows we can't do this way. Americans are waiting to get hit because everyone tells them they're in control.
And ISIS has said they're going to do it, Pat. They haven't hidden it. They said, Baghdadi said, see you in New York.
If they make their way into Turkey, where all those refugees, 150,000 of them, have held camp, if they make their way in, we are talking about, at least this is what generals and military analysts are saying, but my goodness, do the math. This would be a massacre. I mean, just
the Turkish army,
unbelievable.
But Harris, they have already killed 30 to 40,000 Christians in Iraq. So I don't want to engage in fear-mongering, but what you're saying is exactly right. And there's no leadership.
But then you hear the argument of, well, does America really have the palate, the taste for ground troops at this point?
Well, right now we had a poll 10 days ago from the Wall Street Journal, which I thought was much closer about we would need ground troops.
Well, if airstrikes aren't stopping them, yeah.
Box poll has now come out with a majority of people saying we should put people on the ground, and a huge number, even more, think the air campaign by itself will fail. Even a child understands you can't stop an army alone with air power.
By the way, is the job of the president to follow polls or to lead the country and change the polls by explaining to the people, this great communicator that he has proven to be, go on television and sell the public on what we're talking about, that if we don't do this, if we don't do that, here's what's going to happen, and make the case. He seems reluctant to do it.
All right, Freedom Gal writes on Twitter, and I want to get as many of these as possible because we've got so much action going on right now in social media. Don't want to wait until the election to get the country back on track. I want Congress and the president to make the decisions to keep us safe. This is a real issue for the American people. I mean, the economy, always, people vote with their pocketbooks. But this issue of safety is huge right now, just before a midterm.
Harris, it is the huge issue facing us. What do we do to maintain our safety and security? No one is talking about it. The president is not doing what John and Pat said, which is to provide leadership. The American people will rally around a commander-in-chief if he leads.
Let's talk about what's coming up, though, in a few days. He's virtually an unknown in national politics, and he could very well wind up influencing the entire balance of power in the Senate. Heck, many people in Kansas still have questions about who independent Senate candidate George Orman even is. Who is this guy? We'll break down what may be the most important Senate race of all. He's leading by double digits right now. Next.
She inspires you. No question about that. But your erectile dysfunction? That could be a question of blood flow. Cialis Tadalafil for daily use helps you be ready anytime the moment's right. You can be more confident in your ability to be ready. And the same Cialis is the only daily ED tablet approved to treat ED and symptoms of BPH, like needing to go frequently or urgently. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions and medicines, and ask if your heart is healthy enough for sex. Do not take Cialis if you take nitrates for chest pain, as it may cause an unsafe drop in blood pressure. Do not drink alcohol in excess. Side effects may include headache, upset stomach, delayed backache, or muscle ache. To avoid long-term injury, get medical help right away for an erection lasting more than 4 hours. If you have any sudden decrease or loss in hearing or vision, or any allergic reactions like rash, hives, swelling of the lips, tongue, or throat, or difficulty breathing or swallowing, stop taking Cialis and get medical help right away. Ask your doctor about Cialis for daily use and a free 30-tablet trial.
Ameriprise asked people a simple question: can you keep your lifestyle in retirement?